Hello. In this program I'm going to show you how to assemble the Diablo power truck kit. These are some of the tools that you will require. A pair of long nose pliers, heavy duty box cutters, or you can also use Xeron photo etch cutting scissors, which I actually prefer. You'll need a small Phillips head screwdriver, either a 0 size or a 00 size, either one will fit. In addition, you may also require a small flat file and a 3/16 chainsaw file. They're fairly commonly available, and depending upon what options you fit to your model, you may need some super glue, a pair of tweezers just for convenience, and I like to use a small glass bowl to hold all the components. We'll begin by opening the packet, taking out all of the parts. At this stage you should remove the instructions from the package. Please read them, it makes it a lot easier to understand how to put it together. This little package contains a whole lot of very tiny screws and small parts. So I'll empty that into the bowl. This section contains drive components, the wheels, the optional power pickup if you want to use 2-rail connection, and these parts we won't put in the bowl, but we'll put them out on the table. These are the photo etch parts that make up the frame. Notice that all the parts that have to have electrical connections made to them are already soldered, ready for you. You don't need to do any soldering whatsoever. Each of these parts has a name on it. This one, if you can see it on there, has the words MF printed on it. These things all mean something. MF is main frame. It's fairly self-explanatory. What we need to do here is just give it a little bit of a clean up around the edges with a file to get rid of some of the sharp edges. Now we're ready to make the first bend in it. Take the long nose pliers, lay them just slightly to one side. Notice that the lines here indicate the half etched sections of the brass etching. They always go to the inside, so we're bending up in this direction. So we take one side, bend it up to 90 degrees and then just eye it off to make sure that it is square. Turn round, bend the other side up. Again, check to see that it's square. Just a little bit of adjustment necessary. Having got that, then we grab the inside end parts and we bend those up as well. Again, just so that they are square inside the end of the main cradle. And there's the first section of the frame already bent up, ready to go. We place that upside down on the bench, and now it's time to insert the wheels. Make sure that the small bearings on the wheels are pushed out to the ends of the axles. 2 brass bearings are now sitting right at the ends of the axle. Place those into the space between the frames and make sure that the wheels roll freely. Likewise, place the other wheel in the frame, having first moved the bearing out to the end. For those who are going for two-rail connection, there is a small insulator which is on the inside of the wheel on this side. It corresponds to where the thin bearing is positioned. Now, if you ordered your Diablo without insulated wheels, you would have a thicker bearing the same as on the other side in this position, and there would be no insulator. Next we take the keeper plate marked KP and we just give it a bit of a clean up. Where it was attached to the frame of the fret, there will be little tag marks there. They need to be just filed off. Generally this only takes a lick or two of the file to do. Then we bend up the side tabs that are used to attach the side frame to the Diablo. These have got a section of hatching on this side which provide a keying point for side frames when you want to attach them. They just simply get bent up at 90 degrees. Then it gets placed over the top of the main frame and secured in place using two of the very tiny black screws. I always use a magnetic screwdriver, it makes them a little easier to pick them up. These screws should easily go into the base, as all the holes in the etches have all been pre-tapped for you. At this point we check that the wheels actually rotate quite well. The easiest way is to just pick it up and let it hang. If they rotate well, we haven't got anything else to do. If not, it may be necessary to use the chainsaw file to just file out the top of the arches in each frame, which these sections here. However, in most cases I find that this isn't necessary. Now we take the bottom lay shaft assembly. This consists of Diablo pulley in the centre, two small stainless steel bearings on either side and two steel worms. This then can drop into the main frame like so, and it should sit in the right position automatically. Before we do that, good idea to put the belt on because you won't be able to do it once we've finished assembling this section. Next we need to remove the pulley frame from the main fret here. I'm going to use these Xeron scissors to do this because they do the job just beautifully. Again, just a little lick up on the end with it with a file just to take away any vestiges of the tag. And turn it over so that we can see the half-etched lines for the folds and bend that up at 90 degrees. There's no need to actually measure this, you can gauge the 90 degrees by eye, it'll be fine. With the pulley frame bent into the correct shape, remove the drive band, loop it through the pulley frame, then take the lay shaft and thread that through the band as well. I find the easiest way now is to just pull the band up, pull a little bit of tension on, hold it like so, and it's ready to insert. We now insert that into the main frame. You may need to push the ends in very slightly to make that fit. In this case it's fitted very well. Now we take one of the small black screws There are two of these fitted in the end of the Diablo that secure the pulley frame to the main frame. Again, these holes are already tapped for you, so there should be nothing to do. Likewise, at the other end, there is a second screw. To check that the drive system's working, I just take an ordinary pencil, loop it through the top of the band, and then just rotate the band. If everything works correctly, it should rotate and the wheel should go round. In fact, you should be able to suspend it in air and have the same effect. And that one's working beautifully. Now we need to take the upper frame member, which is this section here, and again remove it from the fret. I'll be using the Giron cutters. These really are an excellent tool if you do any work with etched material. Next, we remove the top mount, which is this section here. And give it a bit of a clean up. Now at this point, you have a choice. There are two top mounts provided. This is the normal one, which is made out of 0.7mm thick brass. This one's made out of thinner nickel silver. The trick here is that the amount of movement that the Diablo will be able to move or rock and roll once it's mounted is dependent on the thickness of these mounting members. If you want to keep it to a moderate amount, then you use the thicker one. If you want more freedom of movement, then you use the thinner nickel silver one. In this case, I'm just going to use the normal thicker one. Now we need to separate some of the items out from the small parts bin. There are two black plastic Delrin washers with a shoulder on them. We need both of those. Then there is a silver, nickel silver plain washer, and then there is a longish 6mm or 7mm can be supplied screw, which is required to hold all of this together. We're going to mount this in the centre of the Diablo, where the kingpin is located, which is right here. First, we take the first of the two Delrin washers and place it on top of the assembly with the shoulder side up. Then we place the top mount in position, the second Delrin washer, the nickel silver washer, and finally this 4mm, 6mm screw, and then fasten it all in position. Next we take the upper mount one, turn it over to the opposite side that the writing is on. There are two half-etched fold lines here, so we fold these up at right angles, again gauging it by eye. Then we turn them over and you'll see that there are etched lines on the outside edges. We now fold those back in the opposite direction. And then we should have a shape that roughly represents the top hat. Right, we'll put upper mount one down for a moment, and then finally we need to take the upper pulley frame, which is this part here, and again we need to remove that from the fret. Again, use the scissors, There's a right side and a wrong side when you're using the scissors. One side gives you the least amount of material to remove afterwards. Just clean that up a little bit. And bend it up into a U shape. Now this upper pulley mount is going to attach to the upper mount 1 through a couple of very tiny black screws, which we've used before. These screws are fastened from the underside, so we turn it over, hold it fairly well in position and screw into place. Now take the assembled upper section and insert it through the drive belt into position. Don't need to do anything more at the present moment. Now we're going to take the top mount frame, which is this rectangular frame here, which mounts that into the model, which also has inside it a set of 6 small brass washers. So we're going to remove all of those parts now from the fret. We can discard that part now. Again, just clean up on the outside. And then remove the washer section from in the centre. Finally, remove the washers from the fret. And now we'll skip that section until they're all done. Now we'll take the frame, thread it carefully onto the Diablo. Orientate it so that the 2 holes for attaching it are aligned as a top mount frame. Now this is going to take a few fingers here to hold this in place. What we now need to do is to work out if we are going to need to adjust the ride height of the Diablo, because if we are going to need to insert some of these washers between the rectangular mounting frame and the top mount. Now each washer that you insert raises the Diablo slightly with respect to the frame by about 0.7 of a millimetre. Now this is a fiddly process, so I'm going to skip this and we'll go to it when it's completely assembled. Okay, it's now assembled. The next section we need to put in is the top drive shaft. This is a shaft with a Diablo-shaped pulley on each end. In the spare parts you'll find there are a number of very small copper-coloured and very thin phosphor bronze washers. I usually just lick my finger, pick them up on the end and push them onto the shaft. 2 on each end. Having pushed this on, pick up one of the ball bearings. The ball bearing has a small flange attached to it. That goes towards the Diablo pulley, so we push that onto the shaft. Likewise, place the other ball bearing on the other end as well. Now, the trick is we need to pick up the rubber band and just stretch it slightly to insert the Diablo into position. Make sure that the ball bearings go inside the brass frame. now we have actually a working Diablo. Now, this is the electrical connection wire which must be attached to the frame of the Diablo. There is a point to do this on the side of the Diablo. You can just see there the small hole. Take one of the small black screws, hold the solder tag in position and screw it in place. I usually just bend that outwards just slightly, just to make a slightly better clearance. Only a small amount is all that's needed. Now we have the electrical connection already made. Note that the solder tag comes with a wire already soldered onto it, so there's no need for you to do any soldering whatsoever. If you've elected to have your Diablo work in 2-rail mode, you'll be supplied with an optional pickup. This is a spring phosphor bronze pickup. Again, it has a wire already attached to it. What we need to do is to measure the distance between the centre of the wheels and cut the phosphor bronze pickup to that length. So the easiest way I find to do it is to just hold that in position on the truck side frame, then using the photo edge scissors, trim the piece off. Very simple. The pickup is mounted to a small piece of printed circuit board where it acts as an insulator, and this is where you need a small amount of cyanoacrylate or super glue to attach that. It's attached to the opposite side of the frame to where you just attached the solder tag, so we just glue it onto this area here. Now I'll do that and we'll assume that that's done. The pickup is positioned so that it just touches on the back of the two wheels on the insulated side. Now we have a complete Diablo. Among the parts that are supplied, you'll find that there are nuts and screws, 2mm nuts, screws I should say, and corresponding nuts. These are used to secure your Diablo into the model on the mounting frame in 4 positions. There's also a spare belt. There is also a piece of very nice silicone tubing, and this can be used to couple the Diablo to the motor. It's flexible enough that it can work on the 1.5mm shaft of the Diablo and also up to a 2mm shaft on the motor. You can shorten this shaft if you wish, however it is induction hardened silver steel and very, very tough. I would recommend that if you want to shorten it, you can do so with a cut-off disc on a Dremel. Now, Dremel have 2 types of cut-off discs. One is a very thin, very flimsy cut-off disc. The other one is a fiberglass reinforced one, which is much safer and does the job in about 2 seconds. Also included in the parts here are some spare parts. So if you arrive at the finish of the assembly and find that there are a number of spare parts, do not be concerned. We put them in there in case that you got lost in the process. So now you have a finished and working Diablo. Good luck with putting it into your model. Thank you.